Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and today I wanted to do a follow-up on the Consolidated Outlands NOMAD, specifically in regards to the combat ability, since that was part of the way that this ship was marketed, kind of hauler, kind of combat. Now, if you watched my Should You Buy video on it, I commented on how the components were pretty weak stock. And while some of my workmates did go out and try it out of the box and felt that it did okay, I tend to be a little bit of an in-gamer with my component loadout. So I went ahead and pimped the ride a little bit to give you a real review of how this thing would perform. Now, what that meant was ripping off quite a few of the components, specifically with coolers, power plant, shields, and weaponry. And what I did was I mostly replicated what I consider to be my favorite component loadout for the Saber, considering they have similarities in slots, and it's just a mean ship. Which meant that I ended up putting on 2 Grade B polar coolers. I did 1 JS300 power plant and 3 Guardians for the shields. Now, you could opt to be a little bit more stealthy and run Mirages if you wanted to, but considering I was testing this in what I consider the money-making combat method, which is essentially doing CS bounty missions, you typically go against multiple targets, so I prefer to have the higher hit point pool of the Guardians versus the lower signature. Now, for these types of missions, I generally kit the ship out with laser repeaters such as the Panthers, but to just see how mean it really was, I went ahead and went fixed size 3s, and I got 3 of those, and I opted for Mantises that I then overclocked. So I headed up, started with the Pro 10 bounty mission around Hurston, which I made one, easy work of that one target. Followed that from a CS2 to a CS3 to a CS4, and honestly, the Nomad performed better than expected, and I didn't need to rearm at any point during that. So, you've got, a lot of bullets in the Mantises, but it's not unlimited. Now, if I was really going to do this for an extended period of time, I wouldn't have opted for the ballistics, but as a proof of concept, the ship has the bones to be a pretty good little bounty hunter. Now, that may change some in the future if you need to capture someone, because I prefer 4 hard points if you're going to really do something like neutralize the target and do damage, though you could feasibly run a distortion on the nose and use the top weapons for actual damage, which I guess is something that some of you will probably opt for anyways, considering that distortion does a nice job against shields. The overall feel with this ship was that it's still a little bit drifty, so the fixed weapons aren't super easy to use, but it's not that far off from the bigger ships where I used fixed generally, so it wasn't that bad either. The 3 Guardians did a nice job holding up, and I didn't take any real damage to the ship. And I did get the feeling that if I was going up against a player or just top-tier NPCs, I would have had a hard time landing shots. But I don't think it would be super easy for someone to just get on the tail and stay there either. I think some of the higher paying missions, such as the Authorized Executions or the Arlington Gang missions, would be pretty hard to do solo in this ship unless you kind of bowed out and came back in and bowed out and came back in. But considering it's a hauler that kind of does combat on the side, I was pleasantly surprised. I will say that the flight model isn't that different than the Cutlass, and the Cuddy does more damage and does seem more durable, so I think that is still a better bet, but I am more optimistic about this ship filling its desired role than I was before. So there's combat in the Nomad in a nutshell. Good for bounties and making money. Not your best bet for PvP, though it could be worse. If you guys have questions on this, please get them into the comments. Otherwise, I appreciate y'all watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.